So you were in 41, you were
11 years old.
and you were in Belgrade.
I was born in Belgrade and I lived in Belgrade until the April 6th, when the Belgrade was bombed.
And then?
And then I ran away with my father, of course, to a village about 50 kilometers far from Belgrade, Sopot. And it happened that we lived there in the moment when German troops came in Sopot, and their appearance in Sopot was connected with my first adventure. Because you'll see in the story, I was on the, I don't know how to explain it in English, on the first, on Načelu, on the leading German troops. Why? That's a long story. My father beat me, I was beaten afterwards because of that. And a few days later we had to have yellow, you know that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yellow Star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who reported you? How did they know you were a Jew?
They knew because we were registered by the authorities in Sopot.
Oh, when you
We
arrived?
didn't hide ourselves.
When you arrived, you had to register. You registered.
Yeah, it's a small village,
Right.
and everybody knew that
Right.
we are newcomers, that we live here. And
Right.
I think that we even didn't expect what may happen.
Right, of course. There was no reason to.
And we spent a while. My father was architect, and he made some project for school there in a village near Sopot. And peasants said to him that whatever happens to Jews in Belgrade and even in Sopot, there were some other Jewish families, they will keep him and nothing may happen to him because he made the project free and they loved him. And maybe that would happen. But one day, and I explained in the story how, and because of nonsense really, house in which we were living was surrounded by Pečančev Chetniks and Serbian police. We say gendarmeria.
Yeah.
And we were arrested by that Chetniks voivoda.
Himself? That
In his,
He was there.
He was not with them who
His man.
surrounded, but
His
he
man.
was the yeah.
right, the chief.
My father was accused to have connections with partisans.
And this was when?
It was somehow, I don't know exactly, I don't remember, August 1941, maybe
Yeah. The
a
summer.
bit before or
In
maybe
the summer.
autumn. And he used to beat his prisoners terrible. We were not beaten, happily.
We, when you say your whole family? You were both
My
all
parents
arrested?
were divorced,
Oh.
but when the war began, she learned where we are, and quite occasionally, it is also described in the letters, and she came to us, and all that what happened between them, their disagreements faded.
Right.
And she didn't stay by us. She used to go to Belgrade to take from the village food, because in Belgrade was not enough food, and from Belgrade to bring our clothes and things that we needed when we left Belgrade. one day my father was taken away to a concentration camp, and we still stayed in Sopot in a very special kind of prison. From time to time we were left to go home to change our clothes and to wash ourselves, but it was not possible to run away.
Right.
Because if you travel anywhere, you have to have must have a paper that we call objava. I don't know how to, a kind of
Pass.
something like that, yeah. But as Jews, we couldn't have false identity card. So we had to return to our prison, and we even were not closed in the prison. We had to sit in the corridor, and my mother, from time to time, when somebody was interrogated or something, had to type, because nobody knew to use a typewriter. And she knew to do it with 10 fingers. Mm-hmm. I have to put fuel in their ovens and to clean the rooms or to do stuff. But from time, we were not alone. Some other people were also in corridors, and special kind of prisoners were closed in a big room. It was a conference hall in which others were sitting and sleeping during the night or taken on interrogation, and then we all had to be present on interrogation because it was a kind of, I think Voivoda was not quite normal. He loved to see when people were beaten. And the first time when I saw, I fainted. It was a terrible situation. I was 12 years old only. Later I was used to watch. But one moment, he never did it alone with his hands. He had two very strong chetniks who did it, and he forbid them to beat so. It's not enough strong. They had to beat so under an angle. And he only gave the tact. And they had to beat so, and then he gave quicker.
Were these whips or sticks?
Both. It's also described here. And in one moment, I didn't write it to my son. We were surrounded in the room. I saw something wet on his pants. Maybe that is the explanation why he loved to look when other people beat somebody.
Ah. This was Pechenets.
Well,
this was Pechenets himself.
I don't know.
Was this the Voivoda himself?
He felt nice on a sexual way.
Right.
And after a while, he finished.
Right.
That's it.
And this was the Voivoda himself. He was there.
He was
right.
there, yeah. Well, we had a chance, a good chance, to escape, to run away, and we used it. How did we? How got I the pictures you saw? The picture which was necessary for the identity card. It's a long story, you have it here. So we came to Belgrade and were free. We had false documents, passport.
And how did you get them?
I don't know, the Lord Mayor from Sopot.
Ah.
The first one was a nice man. Later on, when we were already in prison, came another man who served the Germans. So we couldn't expect any help from him. But one day, when we were sitting in the corridor, man who works in, I don't know which office, in the
clerk.
a clerk, yeah, came, and he didn't look in us. He looked out from the window and started explaining, you must escape because you will be sent to the concentration camp and killed. Do it now. And my mother and we were sitting on a bench in the corridor, also looking on another side, said, but we have no papers, no documents. He said, give me a picture, if you can, and I'll make it. How to get a photo, a picture, mine and my mother's. But from time to time, we were not allowed to go to our home,
Right.
by the peasant where we lived, because it was about 5 kilometers or maybe less. But we were allowed to go to a small restaurant near the place where we were arrested, about 50 or 60 meters. The restaurant kept a woman who cooked for the voivode meals for him,
Right.
and her husband was a chetnik by him. So she took his gun, rifle, led us there, and we slept by that woman. On the other side of the street was the Sopot's photograph. And when we were, after a few days after that meeting with that clerk, my mother said to that chetnik, when he led us to sleep there, so quite crazy situations. Prisoners sleeping in a restaurant, and everything was not normal. Please, will you let me to go and make pictures, mine and my sons? I wish before we will be killed to send to my family. He said that he has no time, he is not permitted to do something like that. And then my mother said, I'll pay you for you also. Okay. And it was the evening, I don't know, 6 or 7 o'clock. Next morning, pictures were ready. So we had photographs, and we passed them to that clerk. And then he explained later, I even don't know his name now. He was a friend with the Lord Mayor, and he went in. The forms for the identity cards could be bought in every tobacco shop.
Uh-huh.
So she, or we, I don't remember, got 2 forms, put the pictures on the forms, and went and started talking with him, drinking coffee. And in the moment when the Lord Mayor had, I don't know why, to get out to the WC, or I don't know why, he took put it on the table, and we got it, but it was not fulfilled with our names and everything. But we had something. I think a month before that, I really don't know why, and I cannot explain. I was 11 years old. In the one moment when I was interrogated, it is also written here, somebody called the voivode out. I was sitting in his office, and on his table there was a file of papers, and not fulfilled. We call it objava. It's a kind of pass for chetnik, his name, when he's born, from where he goes, why he goes there. And on a small part on the bottom of that piece of paper was the same for families, chetnik's families, his wife, his son, And on the end, I cannot translate it, believing s verom u Boga za kralja I otadžbinu, believing in God for the king and fatherland. Fatherland. Vojvoda Milija Majstorović. He had to only to write his name. Why? I cannot explain. I was only 11 years old. I took a dozen of that and put it. I cannot explain. And we kept it. So we had our identity documents and that pass. But we had not a chance to fulfill it. How did we escape? I told you when we spoke, had the telephone spoke, that in all groups were not only good and bad peoples, they were mixed. And even between those Chetniks who served the Germans, not all of them were bad ones. Majstorović was a terrible man. In every sense, as a man, as a German servant, I don't know, I cannot tell you anything. If you look at the picture in his eyes, you will maybe understand who and what he was. I was sitting there between that people and listening to their stories. Maybe in those days I grew up quicker than in normal times. And some of them went in Chetniks, in Pechanchev Chetniks, wishing they went in order to fight against, as the Chetniks tradition was, fight against Germans. And when they came and were enrolled and enlisted in that group, they couldn't escape.
Right.
Some of them felt that something is not in order and went to change the place and go to partisans. Vojvoda was a coward. And if partisans were not far from Sopot, Kosma is 10 kilometers from Kosma is a mountain, small. If partisans in the night started shooting just to show that they are somewhere here, he was scared. And then he used to gather all prisoners, taking oranges, and he loved that we kiss his hands. Kiss my hands, kiss Father Vojvoda's hands, kiss, kiss, kiss. Here is an orange, take it. And he made presents. He had a box of orange, and we had to kiss his hands. You see, Father Vojvoda is a good man, and you will tell that I am good, if partisans are close. But when they started being closer, he had some business in Belgrade. He left Sopot and went quickly to Belgrade. And one day we learned that he was wounded in his butina, I don't know how to say, his leg here.
Yeah, right.
And somebody told that he did it carefully alone. To be a certain time in a hospital in Belgrade, not to come here where the partisans are close. Then started some protest between people in that group. Some of them wanted a new, a better and more brave Vojvoda who will fight with partisans. Some of them wished to go to Bosnia. There was a situation that they can run away from that group and go to partisans. Some of them wished to stay in Sopot because the food was good there. And even some women, peasants, women, and some peasants were as war prisoners in Germany. in camps for war prisoners. So they were free and willing, and maybe something could be done with them. It is good to stay here. So they were different. And one day, some officers between them said, well, who wants to stay here on the left side, and who wants a new voivoda? Let go on the right side. And people who wants a new voivoda will go to Belgrade, and we will ask, I cannot explain why, from Nedić. Because they were not under Nedić's command, they were under Costa Pećan's command, so I don't know why did he tell Nedić. In a moment, my mother and me, who were still in the corridor where that happened, looked each other, and we went on the right side, feeling that it is a possibility to left Sopot and came in Belgrade. And nobody of them asked us, what have you to do here? Well, they knew how many are going to Belgrade, how many are to stay, and the next morning, stand up, who wants to go to Belgrade, come down. They shared the ammunition and that what they had. I don't know exactly what happened there. We went down, they shook hands, kissed each other, shot at some... And we were staying, and nobody asked, who ordered you to come with us? Then we went 4 kilometers from Sopot to Đurinci, where the railway station is. And we're waiting a train. It wasn't, the trains had no exactly time,
right,
because all trains with German troops
had priority.
yeah. So we were waiting very long, I don't know how much. I have not exact feeling of time, or I do not remember now. Some of them went to piss, to I don't know what to do. And then came a young man whom we knew from Sopot. He was a Chetnik, but not by Majstorović.
Uh-huh.
In that days, after the war, I learned who he was. In those days, we didn't know. I thought he is a young man, a bit silly. He put a fur cap, had a pistol, and was walking. A nice man, and young girls were looking at him. He said, before him, a few policemen came and asked, where are you going? Because they knew us. It's a village and everybody knows.
Mm.
My mother started crying and said, they're taking us to a concentration camp and they will kill us. And the policeman said, Žandari, don't worry, they are not killing women and kids. We'll stay in the concentration camp until the war finishes. And then came that young Chetnik, asking the same question, and my mother gave the same answer. And he said, listen, I'm not asking you, wishing to listen your lies. I'm asking you because I wish to help you if I can. And somehow my mother trusted him. She believed what he told and explained that we are trying to escape, that we have some papers, but they are empty, we cannot use them. And he said, come with me. I think 20 meters from that place was a small restaurant. And he entered the place and said to the owner of the restaurant, give me a pen and ink. And he said, don't make me troubles. He felt that something was. He said, if you don't shut up and don't bring me that ink and what I am asking, you will have troubles. your house will be burned. And he wrote, who fulfilled and who put the potpis, signature, I don't remember. One thing did he, and I think that I wrote the signature, because in Belgrade nobody knows how is Lord Mayor's in Sopot. So we had the documents. Then came the train. It were those wagons for cattle.
Right.
The Chetniks helped my mother to enter, and we went with them and came in Belgrade. On the Belgrade railway station, we went out from those wagons, and because we traveled with a slow train who had to wait on certain places, a few hours, I think, we went to a toilet, as other soldiers did. But they finished their business in the toilet and returned. And we were sitting in the toilet, I think, a year long. And when we looked, nobody was on the station. They didn't remark that even nobody asked who ordered you to come with us.
Right.
Every officer thought that another one
Right.
gave the order. Then we went out. On the door of the entrance, not entrance, where the exit is, were policemen. They looked our papers, everything okay, and we were free.
By your star, you took a star off when?
No, thank you very much. We had no more stars.
When did you take it
We
off?
took the stars, I don't know. I think when we entered the train, I don't remember, but without the star. Now we were on the street, free, but on that day, you have that written, because my story would last, I think, a week or more. That's too much for you and for me. We tried to get in touch with some friends, but...
Can I ask you, before that Chetnik who you said after the war you found out who he was?
He was a Dražas Chetnik, and we didn't know that. He escaped, and somebody told me that he lived in Australia, and he died there. I'm not sure that it is exactly so, but he didn't. He's Radojević, I forgot his name. It's written here, I can't recall it at that point.
So you called some
Friends, and people were scared. Lots of them told, listen, I have children, please go away, because for every hidden Jew, if you show where they are, you will receive 5,000 dinars. And even for the family who hid them, for every member also 5,000 dinars, and they were killed also. So people were scared. The best way to be hidden was a hotel, but we had no money. That money what we had was not so much. And my mother, the first thing that she did was to go to a hair maker. It was a very wise thing because she was a blonde. She colored her hair in black. Because when the police announced, that Israel wanted,
right.
Kako se kaže, I'm not able even on Serbian to
wanted poster.
Yes, then it would be written a blonde woman. She's no more blonde woman, and nobody, or most of them, wouldn't remark her. And we went on cheapest places, expecting that nobody would expect a hidden person in a hotel. We changed places, why and how, it's written here. A bad thing happened that on that very day when we came to Belgrade, communists killed two very important policemen, George Kosmajac and Obrat Zalat. And the Belgrade was closed. Nobody could, after us, enter Belgrade, neither enter nor get out. We came in a worst situation, in the worst moment. So we had to spend there, I also don't remember, a week or 10 days, I think no more than 10 days. We got some money from my aunt's lover, a very interesting young man, Mihailo Rajkovic, whom we met on the street. And he gave us money so we could pay. But he was not ready to take us to his home, not explaining. After the war, we learned that he hid my aunt and my grandmother. And he was afraid that if somebody recognized my mother,
Right.
or me, my grandmother and my aunt and he and his family will be killed.
Right.
So he let us. We were in touch with some people, and one of them, my good father's friend, gave a suggestion. He told that he met my father. How and why you will see in he gave a suggestion that we should go to Homolje. It's the eastern part of Serbia, which was not occupied, but Germans were not present there.
Right.
He gave not the explanation what happened there, but he said, my sister lives in a village, Krepoljin. Go to her and she will give you shelter and help you. And we went there. The very trip was not complicated and was complicated. We fulfilled another paper that we are traveling, as my mother is a Chetnik's wife and I a Chetnik's son, from Belgrade to Požarevac, from Požarevac with another train to Petrovac, Damlavi, and something happened on the way also. In our country on that times were different, were Pečanč's Chetnik, Draža Chetnik, Nedić's, and the worst of them, Ljotić Chetniks, who were directly serving more than any other group to the Germans. And there was another group also that were the Russians,
The White Russians.
White Russians. And on a railway station, I saw my mother in a moment doing so, and something, she took a handkerchief, cleaning her nose, and let's go quickly. She saw one officer whom he knew before the war. And he looked at her, but was not sure. Well, everything finished nicely. From Petrovac we had to go to Krepoljin. There was no train or buses, but just you have to hire somebody who has a car and a horse and go with him. And in that hotel where we spent the night, she asked, and it turned out that one of them is just intending to go to that village and a bit more to Žagubica, and he can take us 250 dinars and give in advance 50 dinars, and tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock he will be in front of the hotel. Okay. He left the hotel, drank his coffee or what he was drinking, rakia. And then to our table came another man and said, listen, you need somebody to take you to Krepolin. I can do it. My mother said, I have already managed it. I will be cheaper for 200 dinars. My mother said, yes, I gave already 50 dinars. Okay, if I drive, my horses are better. And my car is more comfortable car, a peasant car. Then my mother said, okay, if you come before, I'll go with you. And he came before. How much? 10 minutes or something like that. When we went out from Petrovac, we heard behind some shooting. After that, we learned that that wanted paper for us came. That officer wasn't sure, but when he saw that paper, then he understood that it was my mother. And Petrovac was surrounded, but a bit too late. We succeeded to get out. We didn't know in what danger we were. I don't know.
Right.
Can you understand?
I understand.
Okay, we are free now. And then from Petrovac to Krepolin, where we intended to go, we had to go to a canyon where a very nice medieval monastery is, Gornjak. And when we came to Gornjak, it's only 4 kilometers from the point where we intended to go. A new chutney came, stop. You with the child came down. And the peasant said, okay, I will wait. No, you go, you have not to go to wait. It was a small meadow, and then the monastery, and on that place, an officer with a red beard, nicely cut, fur hat, pistol, said, listen, we know who you are and what you are intending to do. We know everything. And yours is to confess. To explain another thing, when we made those papers, we took the name of our pre-war servant, who was born in Kastav, which was on that time in Italy. So nobody from Serbia could prove is that the same person or not. I had the name from the servant's son. So my mother was Maria Jurčić, that was our servant's name, and I was Aleksandar Jurčić. Since we knew many things about them, about the relations in the servant's family, the place where they were born, if we were interrogated, we could tell the same stories. So nobody could catch us. But my mother confessed immediately. She couldn't stand. She couldn't stand. And she just dropped down, fell on the grass. And so sitting on the grass, she told everything about us, only with the expectation to whom we are going, not to make any harm to him. And when she explained that we are Jews, that we were in Chetnik's prison, that we ran away, escaped, and tried to get to Krepolin, where there were no Germans, the Chetnik, on my surprise, took off his hat, made a cross, and said, lady, thank to Almighty God that you confessed, because you should know that we are not those Chetniks from whom we escaped, who served to Germans. We are the army, King's army, under the command of Draža Mihailović, and we are not pursuing Jews. We are not only an army that did not surrender, but we cannot believe you, because we got the information that the Gestapo woman with a child is coming. And look, those three people, and three Chetniks were on a bench some 15 meters from us, sitting. It was not a very warm time, but the first sun was, and they were sitting. They are here prepared to oyavašiti vas. It's a word that I think cannot be translated on English, but he made so with his finger, and I understood what they were ready to do with us. So we cannot believe you now, cannot trust you. You will be a certain time our, and he didn't know what to tell our guests, until our people in Belgrade get necessary information. And we were put in a, it was really a barrack, a wooden building. For what was it used before the war, I don't know. It doesn't exist anymore now in that place. In a room, we were not closed, but on the entrance was a soldier. On the windows were the bars. We got food, the same that the soldiers received. It was cold in the nights. They brought us wood, and we had a nice warm room. And even the next day, one of them brought some old comics for me. Mika Mish, before the war, I remember. How long have we been? How long have we? 5, 6, 7 days, I really don't know and don't remember. I have not a feeling. And I didn't count the days. And one day came that Chetnik, he was an officer, because they didn't have any signs of their rank, with one who was evidently an higher officer, and said, we got the information, all that you told us is true. And he gave me a soldier's cap, shaikacha, with the emblem of the pre-war army, and said, listen, you are now a king's soldier. I was very proud. And you will be under our protection. Women and children cannot be in the army, but everything that you need, you'll have. Of course, if we can do for you. Now we have to go to Sopot. Then my mother explained where we were intended to go. But you have to javiti se, my God, to find Mika Pečić, captain, who has, he's a captain, but he has, Chetniks also hid their names because the problems that their family in towns could have, and even their ranks. He is known under Sergeant Mika down. He's a commander in Krepodin, and you will be his brother's wife. His brother is a war prisoner in Germany, and you will be officially his wife, so he can help you. And we came to Sopot, phoned him In the center, he was a very high, strong man, surrounded with some people. And when he saw us coming, because we were strangers in that surrounding, he looked, and my mother said, and saw him, and say, I don't know what name, I think the same name, and he kissed us. You are bigger than you were when I saw you, and so on. And then we went to Rada and spent a while by Rada. And then some things happened, it's described here, that we had to let Sopot and go to a smaller village, a bit far away from the main road. Some very interesting things happened in Sopot also in those days, described here. Spy, Ljotić spy was there and was discovered. I saw that. Then we lived a while in autumn 1942 in a village Izvarica, Sige and then Izvarica, and then I was involved in murder of Ljotić spy. How was I with 12 years involved? He was a doctor, and in those days, in a few villages there, started dysentery. You know what is it?
Yeah.
And people had troubles, and he came and cured them.
Mm-hmm.
Peasants were surprised that how he had a car and a driver.
Mm-hmm.
And one day when he came to the village where we were, to Jošanica, and went in a house, I don't know where and how, because we didn't appear when a stranger comes in the village. So we lived free.
Right.
Peasants were informed that we are under Chetnik's care and didn't ask who we are. They gave us food and everything was okay. And we were in a house of a very nice man, Ljubivoj Nikolić. But when the doctor went to somewhere to somebody who was ill, the driver told to some peasants who were sitting in front of the house where Lord Mayor of the village works, and said, listen, do you see what happens? They asked, what? Do you know that he is Ljotić spy? How spy? He's coming to get informations about Chetniks and about partisans and about everything that happens here. And when he returns, he doesn't go to the hospital. He goes to Marisav Petrović, one of main Ljotić's officers, and gives him information. Of course, the same information went from the peasants to Chetnik's command, to Draža's command, the command of Draža's Chetniks. And the order came, when he next time comes to the village, he may not get out from the village. Do with him what is necessary. Everything was prepared, and when he next time came, he was arrested by 3 Chetniks and was taken away. But as in the village, there was nobody who could read and write. Maybe some people were, right, but they didn't trust them. So I was taken and hidden a bit away. I haven't seen the doctor, and one of them brought me his notebook with very strange notes. It was written the date and the hour when he visited, but he didn't write the name of the patient. He wrote some Turkish names, Aliya, Mustafa. No one was in the village. And then gave him 10 cubics injections. How much? Not written what. Only the amount. And then died in 2 days because he visited a few days. And only something like that. Was he a lunatic who was given injections in order to kill some people? Or was it something else? I even don't know today. I tried to get after the war some information, but nobody could tell anything. They took him away and killed him. But the driver was given not in the village, on the entrance of the village where he was stopped and taken away, that he was on the main road, so that the village could not be under suspicion that somebody from the village did it. But then we didn't feel safe in the village, and we went out in the mountains, because every peasant in that part of the country had his home in the village and had something in the mountains where he kept his sheep and cows. It was in autumn 1942, and from the autumn 1942 to the autumn 1944, I have only once been a few hours in a village. I was always hidden in the mountains. I wasn't in Chetniks groups because women and children have not what to do. But we always kept us close to some Chetniks groups because they had their information. And if a danger comes, then they informed us, and we with them ran away, and then we were together with them, because it was forbidden to kill Germans. In that part, Homolje and eastern Serbia, Krajina, I am sure, I know, there was no signs of collaboration between Chetnik and Germans. No one case, but it was forbidden to kill, because every killed German, that meant 100 killed Serbs. 10 killed Germans meant village burned. So even if there was a small group of Germans, the Chetniks ran away. Chetniks groups were not very large. I don't remember that I met groups bigger than 30 or 40 people. Usually 20, 25. But those who were two kinds. One of them who had birds, that were Chetniks who went in the mountains, when in the moment or a short time after the occupation. And the bird is a sign by our peasants in Serbian tradition when you are mourning, yeah. They are mourning the fatherland. And other Chetniks who came, who were mobilized, I don't know to say, mobilisani.
Yeah, mobilized, yes.
Mobilized, yes. They shave their faces, so you immediately know who is a. And those with beards were commanders, usually, and the others were prepared to be officers. For the moment when a D-Day comes, right, then they will mobilize other people from the village, and they will be already trained to be commanders. In Eastern Serbia, there were no partisans. They left the Serbia, I think, in 1942 and went to Bosnia. I never heard Chetniks speaking something bad, hating partisans. They looked at them only as a danger, as people who are willing to kill Germans now. We'll do it later when D-Day comes. Now killing 1, 2, 5 or 10 German soldiers is nothing. But it is very bad, it's evil for the country. Mm-hmm. So we hid ourselves in the mountains. Homolje was known as a Hajduk, part where Hajduks lived. You know what Hajduk is. And in the tradition, when somebody is pursued by the authorities, then we have to keep him. Hajduks were good men who were robbing the rich ones and giving to us. They went in another part of the country, robbing there and bringing here. We are not robbing, but we were welcome, and the whole time, in every salash that were those houses or poyata in mountains, where we came and say, listen, we are hiding ourselves, sit down. They were not rich and had not much food, but that what they had, they shared with us, and they helped us. There was no case of treachery, do you say?
Treason. Betrayal.
Betrayal, yeah. So we felt on a certain way very safe. Of course, there were some cases when we had troubles even with Chetniks. Why? Because in Kučevo was a voivoda who was in Pečančev's troops.
Uh-huh.
And when Kosta Pečanac was condemned to death by Draža Mihajlović and killed, he came and said, I am yours, to Dražas, and he became a commander in that part. Those people were, I must describe them, half-willed people. Terrible looking. And one bad winter day, they suddenly came in the Salash where we lived. We always changed the place.
Right.
We never were more than 6 or 10 days on one place. We always changed it, so we felt safer. But it happened that we came a few times on the same place, so peasants knew us already. They came. It was winter, very something the weather like now, maybe worse, and they didn't ask our hosts who they are, that my mother and me. Who are you? Where did you come from? And we lied, of course, that we are from the village, that we are in a relationship with our mother. He said, no, we know that you are not. Why? When they came behind the house, peasants have no toilet. They go behind the house, or if the forest is closed, and they don't use toilet paper. And they sew sheet, not toilet paper, but from time to time we found some old papers or in some days we used leaves,
Right.
a few pieces, because we are used to use
Right.
it. But when nothing, then nothing.
Right.
And they sew papers. It was a sign that somebody who is not a peasant is here. And they decided to kill us, to slaughter us. It was a bad situation. They spoke on a Wallachian language.
Oh,
During that time, I learned a few Wallachian words. My host knew a bit more because there were villages, Serbian villages, Wallachian villages, and villages which were mixed people. And we understood their intention. We are spies and they have to kill us. And what happened in my head, I don't know, but I said, listen, you're asking who we are. It's not your business. But if something happens to us, your voivode will kill you. It was a brave idea, I don't know now how. Okay, they said, we'll take you to our voivode. In that winter days, and it was evening, nobody who is normal would go out. And nobody of peasants goes out far away from his house. And they knew it. I said, no, we got from your voivode and from a higher place order to be here, and we'll stay here. If you have intention to learn who we are, go. Or if you are not willing to leave us alone here, then our host began to sing the same song. Let somebody stay here, and somebody can go, you're free. Because we thought, if one stays in the night, our host has an axe, he can be killed. Even if there are two of them, our host has enough rakia to give them, and the thing will be, but with three of them it's not so easy to do it. Well, they discussed something and then said, well, we'll go, and you sit on the threshold, take an axe, and you keep them. If they disappear, your head goes off. And they left. What happened with them, we never learned, but at the same moment he said to his son, bring the rifle. All peasants in Homily have rifles and even machine guns. And he brought a very old rifle from the First War with 3 patrons that can be in the magazine. And then, but the house was in a very good place. In front of them were piles of wood for fuel. And then was clean. So if they come back, we can like on a strelište, on a place where you
can pick them off.
Yeah. But and it was very cold, so we every 10 or 15 minutes change ourselves. But until the morning, nobody came, and then he took his ships and went to a neighbor who was 20 or 30 minutes far from that place, and we left the place. That was the only moment when we were in the danger of some chetniks, but there were not true Draža's chetniks. What happens? Many adventures. 3 times, 3 different dogs saved our life. It's described here in a drawing I made, how it happened, how it was. There was another story that I think it's important or maybe interesting for you, not maybe for the Memorial Center, but to explain what happens there and what happened. Draža was accused that he killed alien pilots.
Right.
As far as I know, it's a lie.
Right.
Because
No reason.
when I was a kid, the first language that I learned, I'm sorry I forgot more than English, was German. Because my mother was from Zemun, And when the first war broke out, she ran away to Hungary. In Zemun, she spoke Serbian and German because it was also Hungarian. In Hungary, she learned Hungarian. Then she went to our own aunt because in Hungary was a communist Bela Kun's revolution. And she ran away to another aunt who lived in Vienna. And when she came back to Belgrade in 19, I don't know exactly, 20, which year, she forgot Serbian. She spoke Hungarian so and so. The best language, she spoke German perfectly. And then my father, who came from Russia, from Georgia, as a volunteer on the Solent frontier, and with Serbian troops came here and stayed here, he was kind of a left wing, not communist, but very close to that. He decided to stay in Belgrade. But in 1920, I have his passport. It's another story. He went to Georgia and returned, explaining to some friends, it is not that what I wished and for what I fought when I was young. And he stayed here. So, he spoke Serbian perfectly. My mother, terribly. And they made an agreement. She will speak with me German. And then when I was 3 years, she gave me an English kindergarten. And there I learned English. It was a child's vocabulary. I didn't know all words necessary, which I could use now. But in one moment, when we were in Homolje, on Beljanica mountain, there was a Chetnik's commander, Blaža Jovanović. Quite occasionally, he knew that I speak English. I speak English a bit. And I was called to come an hour or maybe more far away from the place where we at that moment were living, because there was a group of 10, 12, 15, I don't know exactly how many pilots who were there. When an airplane was shut down, the pilot jumped out and then began a race. Germans with their cars ran to find them, and peasants did the same. But usually, I think in all cases, peasants were quicker, took them away and hid them, brought them to Chetniks, and Chetniks gathered them in also one salash. And I had to translate and to explain on my way, more with hands than with the language, that I knew that they have to be safe. They are safe here. They will be fed as much as at the moment there are Chetniks and peasants have food. And wait a moment, when an airport is made somewhere, nobody knew on which place, and then they will be led there and brought back to Bari. If Chetniks would kill them, they would not keep and feed them. And I knew a month later or something like that, that information came that they have to go on the other side of the mountain Beljanica and somewhere to be. So I knew that accusation wasn't true. Well, many things happened. I think it's not interesting for you, but all the time we were under the Chetniks. Not everybody knew that we are Jews, but high officers knew. It was not recommended, not even for us, even for Chetniks and officers to say their real name, the place where they're coming from, anything, because a family or somebody could have troubles. So in one moment, I was even, I don't know, how do you call when a woman has to make birth, to get a baby, that woman who helps. We say it babica.
Midwife.
Midwife. I was a midwife even. The woman, we traveling so from Sarash to Sarash, we turned just to the same place where those wanted to kill us.
Mhm.
And my mother had a watch. The woman was with a big axe cutting some wood. And so you are welcome. I have to ask you something. And she gave me a sign to go a bit away. And then they spoke something, and my mother looked at the watch and she said, "Yo, now. Looked, now again. I didn't know what it means. Then in the house, I described how their house were looking. On the open fire was a big pot with boiled water. Why it must be boiled? And some rugs and a big wooden vessel, korito we call it, I don't know. And the woman prepared for us kachamak and some cheese, and we started. She went out to bring cheese in another room, so was it. And she didn't return immediately. I think it lasted more than 4 or 5 minutes, very quickly. She worked until the last moment, and the very birth was just the moment. I tried to run, my mother said, stay here, and she went, and then she came with the baby. It was bloody, and put it down and said, "Sasha, take him, I will faint," and she fainted. I took the baby, and then she said, "Bend his, here's a cord."
Umbilical cord.
I saw some babies when the cord is still here, and I saw that a knot was here, and I knew that they prepared a piece of thread that they made alone. It was ugly. I took a piece of rag, took that cord that was, I think, so long, bound the knot on the middle, then took the thread. I didn't know on which side should it be bound. I made one knot up from it, one knot down, and one knot over that, and then cut the piece. It was so long, it fell down. Cats who were here started fighting and ran under the bed. Then I put some water, because I saw what women do. They put the elbow in the water to see is it not too hot or cold. I washed the baby. Some rags. And then my mother woke up, and the woman came back. It was a very nice evening. I forgot to explain that the grandmother, child's grandmother, got, before that happened, a bottle of rakia and a piece of bread, and he went on the cellar. Not for that, but as a story. Marriages in that part are made very, very early. It is not unusually that marriages are made when the young man has 8, 10 or 12 years, and the young lady has 14 or 16, because she has to work. And the first sexual experience is made between the young lady and the groom's father. So when she gets a baby, it is not father's but grandfather's child. That was in those parts of country, something quite normal. Then, to play the whole story, he don't know that a child will born. He knows. He gets his rakia, goes and sleeps up. And when in the morning he comes, you got a grandchild. Well, that was finished that evening, and we were exciting. We finished our meal, which was we even didn't begin to eat. And we lied down, and then started speaking, my mother, with that woman. She felt awful. The next morning, she continued cutting wood. And then she asked something that I must mention. That's why I'm telling the whole story about our life in the big town of Belgrade. She never was there. She never was, even not in Petrovac or Požarevac. Listen, somebody told me that there in Belgrade live Jews. My mother said yes. And how are they looking like? My mother asked why. I'm told that they are black and they have big horns. My mother said no. They're looking just like me and my child. And so the conversation was finished about Jews. That's why I'm telling the whole story with the birth of. I think it was something on the end of summer when partisans returned from Bosnia to Serbia. I don't know exactly the time. And by Sokobanja, I don't know exactly the place, I heard some rumors about that, was a frontier. Partisans coming, and on another side were Chetniks, Germans, Ljotićs. They were not collaborating. If there was a frontier, it was knowing here are Chetniks, here are partisans, and when the partisans moved back, then Chetniks and Ljotić started fighting. It was a mess. Germans felt that the war is on its very end and disappeared. Partisans came in that part of the country, and one day we saw on the next hill a group of several partisans came to us, and we were happy because we had nothing against them. They are also fighting with Germans, and they arrested us because they got the information that my mother must be somebody connected with some higher places. And when we went, then they took also my hat off, and one had no shaikacha and put it on his head. Took all that we had, and we had nothing. I had a small bag, and my mother also. We were taken to a village, Sige, and were interrogated there. The officer who interrogated us, it was a member of party, asked questions, and my mother answered and told the whole story. It was a house with a few rooms, and many years later I learned how we survived. A few times he went out and said, sit here, we'll continue the interrogation, and came back. And then on the end he said, you are free. Go quickly in the village where we were in the mountains, go down the village, it's free now. And Finn, the new mayor, who was a communist now, chosen by communists. And I say a few years later, I was sitting with a friend, my parents' friend, my grandmother and aunt's friend, who was in partisans. was a dinner and we were sitting and he said, yes, so you were by Rajas and I was by partisans. I said, okay, we are alive all. And you were arrested by partisans. Yes, we have been. And you were interrogated in the village called Sige. How do you know that? It is not written here because it was not interesting for my son. He said, listen, I was then the political commissar in that unit. It's higher than the commander. And because I knew who you are when I heard your name, but it was even for me dangerous to know, to tell, let him free, they are innocent and have nothing, because then I could be under suspicion and be killed. You have connections with Chetnik's wife and so on. So I told, let the door open, I will be in the next room and I will listen to the interrogation and tell you what my impressions are. Mm. So we met a few times while the interrogations was outside, and on the end I said, let them free, she is not guilty. That saved our life. Then we came to Belgrade, went down to our house in Gundulice Venac 53. It was not a big house, it's still there. And I wrote a story about that house. I'm writing several stories, all they are true. I'm not kind to. There were, it's about 90 or 100 square meters. In the house there were 3 families and an old man who was dying. And we couldn't enter in our home. Then we went to that Mihailo Rajkovic, and he said, the next day we went to him, and he said, why didn't you come to me immediately? He said, we tried to see in hope that my father returned before from some concentration camp. We didn't know that all people from the camps already all were killed. Well, come to Pašino Brdo. It's a part of Belgrade. And we shall lunch, and then we'll tell story. Listen, do you know something about my grandmother and aunt? Because he was her lover. Not grandmothers, but aunts. He said, let's talk later about that. Because we got the information, he said that they ran to Budapest. And we hope that the aunt and grandmother survived in Budapest and didn't ask any questions more. And we went and he said, first lunch, we'll talk with Mirjana. Who is Mirjana? Maybe his new wife. And my mother said, let's lunch quickly and go back home because we have no connections with him personally. The traffic didn't work. We went by foot to Pašino Brdo. It was an hour walk. And when we entered in the house, in the kitchen, my mother and my aunt were sitting there. He didn't say us, nothing about them, and they even didn't know nothing about us. It was so safer and better. A short time after that I was arrested, how it's described here, and spent 65 days in arrest. And many things happened there. I saw Miloš Kalabić, Chetnik's commander, he was a floor above me. I saw Stanković, he was Kraljevski namjesnik, king's, when King was killed, who worked until a new king is chosen, he had,
Regent.
yeah. Very strange, interesting, and different people were there. That was my university. I learned there a lot of things. I met even a young man, not for your story, but who ate people. He had about 19, 20 years, I don't know exactly how, but he was the youngest there. One day he was brought in the prison with some 3 other newcomers. I'm not lying, that's really true. And as he was the youngest one, and I was the youngest one, and after me was he, so we got somehow close. It was a big room, and we lay down on the floor. And during the day we didn't lay, it was forbidden, we have to sit. 2 or 3 times we were let out to the toilet. But I started talking with him, and the other who came with that group told me, don't be friend with him, don't be friend with him, he's a bad man. Why? He was a nice young man. Why? I said, don't. And at the end they said me, he was eating people in the concentration camp. Finally, I learned that people who came back from concentration camp on the very railway station, they were on the exit door. Some other people from that station, because they came in groups. And they said, this in prison because he was in the group who was working for Draža, and in the group who was communist were let free. Those few were in the group who were for prison. And they didn't explain me. When I was left free, a few months later, I don't know, or maybe a year later, I met him in the town. We kissed each other because I didn't believe them. And I told him what their explanation was. And he said, yes, I did so. How? Why? Well, his father, I don't remember his name, was a well-known doctor in Belgrade. The young man was arrested and put in prison and then in concentration camp. He was hungry. People were killing, were dying with hunger. And it was used that some of them who were lying unable even to move, that was his story and I trust him, were put in a hospital without remedies, without anything. They were lying there, and when they die, when they put in ovens in the
Right.
crematory.
Right.
Some of the doctors who were there, just if Red Cross people comes to say we have even doctors or something, recognized him, seeing in what situation he is, in what a condition, and started bringing him food. And when he recovered a bit, one of them said, son, we'll hold him, take him here as a bolničar, not a doctor, but
Nurse.
as a nurse, yeah. And you will have to learn to get food alone. What? It were livers of died people.
Right.
They didn't kill them, but when somebody dies, the liver is still in a condition that here is enough to feed. They cut it on very tiny slices, put it on a bit of fire and fed him.
Right.
He was studying medicine. He was then on the first year when he was arrested, because the university didn't work. He was on the first year when the war broke out. And he had to do it. And He said, I did it.
Of course.
So I met very different people in that prison and saw terrible things. And my mother was arrested also, and we were let free after 65 days. And on 1947 I was arrested again. But that was not so, it was a tedious part of my life. I spent, I think, 10 or 12 days. I was arrested because before the first May. It was the biggest communist holiday, and they used to arrest some people who were in prison under suspicion and put them on a safe place until the holiday finished, and then I was let. So nothing happened. I had to play chess with some people in the same prison. And then I started learning, studying, forgetting all that happened, until my son asked me to write him. And if you ask me now, what have I eaten yesterday for lunch? I don't know. Even now, when you wrote me the address, I looked at it, but I took the piece of paper, and when I came in the street, I looked again, because my memory for some things fades where I'm 80 years, fades very, very, very quickly. But things that happened then are somehow better printed in my mind. And that's all what I can tell you. So if you asked me about the Chetniks' collaboration with the Germans, neither then, I met lots of them, you will see in that what I wrote, neither in prison, neither after that meeting with some people, I don't see any situation in which the collaboration was more closer than even partisans had some contacts with Germans in 1943, you know, for that case. Right. It's a war, and maybe, but Chetnik's intention in all parts of the war was only to keep the nation safe, alive, until the moment when something can be done. I think that's what I can tell you. More details you will find here. And when my book, written on a Serbian language, was edited, some people appeared. Somebody read the book. In some papers was something written about that. And it turned out that he's now my neighbor in the next house he lives. He's the son of that man who sent us to Homolje, to his sister. Another one, I'm in an email connection with him, is a son of a priest, Rashko, who was in one Chetniks unit, and I met him several times. Pope Rashko is his grandfather, and he knows only that when his grandfather was killed, his father was 3 years old, and even he don't remember Rashko. And now the young man, he must be of your age or something like that. He learned and read my book and asked me, what do I know? He knows that his father was captured by partisans and killed somewhere. What can I tell you? And I said, all that I know is in that book about Pope Rashko. Then he sent me a few pictures, because he has not even a picture, Rashko's photo. And he has some photos, and he suspects that one of them is his grandfather. Can I recognize him? I looked at the picture, looked at my memory. It's more than 60, and I was a small kid. He was an older man. I couldn't help him. And we are now in a correspondence and on email. I even found the name of that officer who in Gornjak, when we were arrested by Chetniks, the higher rank officer, Siniša Pazarac, Siniša Odsokolić Pazarac. I tried and typed his name. And on that place was his photo without a bed, because they found it somewhere, maybe when he was in the officers' academy or something. And his short biography. And a few people who had some connection with my story wrote me or called me by telephone, and I am in a connection with them. I think that's at the end of the whole story. If you have some questions, and if you have nervous with me,
So these are all people who have connections through their parents. There is no one who is still alive.
That whose grandfather is Popraško wrote me that he was visiting the places. Popraško was a priest near Žagubica in Trška Crkva, in Trška Church. It's a kilometer from Žagubica. And he said me that two men, old now, from Osanica. That's a village also close to Žagubica, and even closer to Jošanica, where I started and went to the mountains, and who were by Siniša in his unit, are still alive, and that he intends to visit them, and maybe they will recognize somebody from the picture or tell him more details about his grandfather's that's what happened with him. I'm 80 now, because those soldiers, those Chetniks were, I think, more than 10 years older. That means that they are 19 and
Right.
maybe more.
Right.
So I don't believe that there are lots of them who are still alive.
Very few. The food that you were in the mountains for 2 years, so you were always given food by the peasants.
Some of the peasants were very willing to give us, to share what they have. That what they had, that was kačamak. I don't know how, kukuruz. Corn. Cooked in water,
Right.
and that's all. They even make it without salt and without anything else. Some cheese, some eggs. Meat was very rare and a great luxury, because sheep were to give wool and milk, and only on great holidays. But it happened that we were hidden out in the forests a few days, maybe sometimes even more, and that what we had in our bag was really not enough. So it was normal not to eat 2 or 3 days. It was more difficult to be without water. Happily, in those mountains, you can on many places find small springs. But once it was that we were hidden, I don't know, I think 50 or no more than 100 meters from a spring. But in the mountains were Ljotić's units everywhere, looking for Chetniks. and we were hidden and we didn't dare to get out from the place where we were hidden. It is described here. 1 day, 2 days, I think 3 days. I had not a vessel in which to keep water. And after 3 days it was terrible. Without food you can easily, but without water, not. And I think it was the 4th day. I decided to go out. I was young and more able to creep to that place hidden. And I started creeping, and all small pieces of branches, leaves, put away not to make any noise. It was silent on the way. Nobody. In forest you can hear noises very far away. How much I creeped? It was early in the morning, before the down, yeah.
So, yeah.
But I fainted in one moment when I returned, woke up. The sun was so high. I went on, and on the very place where the spring begins, on the very place where the spring begins, was something like a lake, like this, half of this room.
Mm-hmm.
And from that lake, so small,
A rivulet of water.
yeah. And when I came, I remember I was on the end to faint again. And I just left my head, fell down, because I creeped to that place and started drinking. I never felt something nice like that. I drank and drank, and not only my thirst disappeared, but even my hunger disappeared. It had a wonderful taste. I had a vessel made of earth, of ceramics, a small vessel. Mm-hmm. I took the water, and then, understanding that there are no soldiers, I returned, brought the water to my mother. The water on that lake was very clear. Some leaves were swimming on it, yellow, and through the branches came, because the sun was, came some rays of sun. I remember it like a photo now. And then I understood that in the water was something like grapes. How do you call that? Mm-hmm. Not grape, but that whole, is there a word on English? Grozd. What is that?
This is a bunch of grapes.
Bunches. Bunches of small, well, not to describe, frogs' eggs.
Yeah, they look like grapes, yes.
And when I drank, I swallowed it. And my mother, I told never to my mother. I did it without knowing what I'm doing. Well, now, I could eat them,
of course.
I could bake them, but at that moment, I was ready to eat everything. So, about the food. Of course, it happened in a few moments that we ate also meat. And when we were close to, or when we were running away from some dangerous situation with Chetniks, then we received that what Chetniks ate. Stories told by partisans how they ate rich only meat and gibanica and I don't know what. In Homolje was not. Maybe in villages close to Belgrade that something like that happens, because among Chetniks were different people. What they ate? Potatoes, cabbage, and mostly beans. Cooking in water with some onions and kachamak. And sometimes broya. Do you know what broya is? It's something like kachamak but baked in the oven.
Cornbread.
Yeah, cornbread. And that were our meals. My mother was able to knit, and she worked for peasants, women, knitting jumpers and different things, and then they gave us cheese, some slanina, yeah. So we had some extra from time to time. I was not sitting. I helped in keeping sheeps and in that what they worked, as my mother did also. So we got some extra food from peasants and they were very ready to help us. Once it happened, it was a winter and I came to a place. Now I even don't remember where it happened because we changed, but I know that I had no shoes. I wrapped some rags. I learned how to make opanci. A very simple way, not those nice. Here is a drawing of that, what I did. And he said, boy, come to me. He had a big coffin, kovčeg. Box, a big
Right.
He opened it and took out good clothes, pants, and gave it to me. And my mother said, I have no money to pay you for that. And he said, don't worry, you're hiding yourself. He has no clothes. That is not for any use anymore. And that's my son's. Those clothes are good. And he used them when he goes on some holidays, on peasants' meetings na Vašare. And you need it for something more important. From time to time, Mihailo, who knew that we are somewhere in Homolje, and in Žagubica, there was a man, apotekar, pharmacist. He sent it to the pharmacist, and pharmacist gave it to peasants. They even didn't know on which we place at that moment, and sent it in mountains. And then they knew in which part of Homolje we are hidden. You see on the map it's about 80 kilometers. And in a month, 2 or 3, we received the package. The first he sent us, not knowing what we need, because he was keeping a bookshop. And that what pencils and paper and books and so on. It was a well-known Rajković Đuković bookshop in Belgrade. He said pencils and things that were quite not for you. So we presented it to peasants, and later on he learned it somehow. So we got some clothes. Once I got a pair of shoes that was too big for me and too small for my mother. But some of those things helped us. The rest, for all that time, we received from peasants my mother made, and so that was about our food.
And this Mihailo was who?
Mihailo was that the man who kept my aunt and my
Yes,
grandmother.
yes.
But he didn't know exactly. He knew that we are somewhere in Homolje, and that pharmacist is in some connections with peasants who know something about us. Once happened that we got a message from a peasant whom we never met before, and even afterwards, I think, that the Ljotić's officer came to live in Žagubica in his home. He was a very kind man, brought some sweets to children. And one day, spending a certain time there, he was very sad and nervous. And his hosts asked him, "What happened to you? Why are you sad?" He said, "I'm in a very terrible situation. Here somewhere in mountains is a woman hidden with her child. From the concentration camp, a Jew escaped." Before that, I must tell you that because the peasants didn't know who we are, and my mother had name Maria Jurčić, and I was Aleksandar Jurčić. Some peasants, some rumors came that my mother is Queen Maria. And then the Ljotić's commander, Marislav Petrović, whom I mentioned, hold a meeting and say, "Listen, in the mountains there is a woman who presents herself that she is your queen. She is lying. Your queen left you and he is in England. And that is a liar. Who knows? We'll catch her and then we'll see who she is." Well, the whole story about my mother as a queen didn't last a long time, not because of Marislav Petrović, but my mother also explained that it's not true, she is not. Well, that man said, "We are Jews," and her husband, my mother's husband, escaped, and I am hiding him. He is hiding my father. But he is in a very bad condition. He cannot eat, he is sad. He only thinks what is with his wife and kid. And if I could bring them to him, make a connection, he will survive. So I am afraid he will die. Send a message in the mountains that explain them that story, that this is necessary to do something to save his wife. And that story came to us. I was ready to run down. But it was a feeling, an instinct, I don't know what. I learned many things how to save my life during the period. So I told him, "Listen, ask that officer if that man has a special sign on his body, and the same sign have I. I have here a black point. I don't know how do you call it. Mladež. That.
Skin growth. Yes.
That's my father also. And how was my father called when he was a kid? His father called him Mati. And when that message came to the officer, he stopped being sad. He left the home and never appeared again. It was a trap. So the whole story is that they did different things trying to catch us. What they all did, not knowing who we are, is here in the...
So this means it was a rare thing to have people hiding in the mountains? There were not many, apparently. Surprising.
How many people are hiding?
If you were so well known,
You mean generally or only Jews?
No, I mean, it seems you would have thought there would be lots of people hiding in the
No.
woods.
In woods were Chetniks. In the part of country
Right.
where I was, were Chetniks. In other people parts were even partisans or communists. In Homolje, near Laznica, that's a few hours walk from the place where we are, where we heard about that. I never met them. I think 3 or 4 partisans. They were in some partisan units, and when those units withdrew to Bosnia, they stayed there. Chetniks didn't look after them, didn't pursue them. They were still and didn't make any troubles with the Germans, but they were hidden. I met some, in a few cases, people who were connected with Chetniks, not in their units, but had some connection. It's described here, not so important, and didn't meet any Jews. The only man, I'm now writing a short story about him, is a strange man who was, when the Germans, it was in 1941, I think, 1941, occupied Cyprus. You know that Cyprus kept the English troops. There were lots of war prisoners. And some of them jumped out from a train near Belgrade and succeeded to Homolje. And he went to Draža's units. I saw him only once, but I know the story. And he was in Draža's unit. He was not quite black, but very dark. I think he was in a part of those English colony troops. I don't know from which countries.
India or Pakistan, probably.
I don't know. But his English was worse than mine. And in Chetniks, when he was, I suppose that he was a nice-looking man. Before that, in Homolje is an illness that was part of national illness, syphilis.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people had syphilis. Right. Those who got it as a heritage were not dangerous.
Right.
But there was a belief, if you remark that you have syphilis, you have to present it to somebody else, and then you will be not more any ill. So it went very easily from one, and he got syphilis. Receiving that syphilis, he got some open wounds.
Yeah.
Here between legs, and he was not able to walk a long time, and he could not stay in Draža's units. And they helped him to be employed in a restaurant on Crni Vrh, that's near between Bor and Čagubica, on a very high place where usually biggest snows in winter, Crni Vrh, are. And he worked there, and I don't know how and why he got information that we are here somewhere, and after a while it was winter. In winter it was not so dangerous because neither Germans nor Ljotićes went out when the snow is big. So we felt rather safe. Then, one day he appeared. We were not far from Crni Vrh. What we spoke, I don't remember. I think he told us about his past, how he escaped. nothing that I put in my memory. He spent an hour or two with us, telling how he jumped out from the train, how he was with the units, and what he is working now, helped to that woman who kept the restaurant, and her husband was as a war prisoners in Germany also. And then he returned home. After that, I don't know exactly how long, Germans who were passing that part stopped it, because that place was on the very road. And arrested him. Started crying, Chetnik, partisan. What was in his mind? So peasants told me, he started crying, no Chetnik, no partisans. Muslim, I am Muslim, Allah, Muslim, British soldier. And they shot him. And he was buried there. Nobody knows now where he lies, who he is. That's one of the few people who were not in Chetniks, neither in partisans. But for me, a very sad and strange story. That's all that.
And your father?
He was one of the last prisoners in Sajmište concentration camp. Germans kept him because he, as an architect, was building some, not houses, but objects there. And when the camp was nearly empty, only a few women, one of them who survived told me that she says that she knows the exact date when it happened. I don't know in that hell in that mess that she can know exactly which date was it, but March 1942, he had a few chances to come to Belgrade, of course, with a few soldiers, because he said that he, making the designs for the houses, needs some tabelle of making the how much concrete must be put, and so he came to that man who sent us to Homolje, to his sister, and to his good friend who was a dentist. He was very hungry, in a bad situation, but he told that they got from the German authorities information that the rest of prisoners, who were all some were as he architect, some of them were another professions, will be sent to Poland and work in Polish mines. And he said, okay, I'm ready to work there because so I'll stay alive, not be killed. And one day that woman told me that she was present, put in a truck, it was that gas truck, and killed and buried on the place Jainci, where lots of Jews are from Sajmište taken with gas trucks and buried in Jainci. Near the end of the war, Germans buried all the murdered people and burned them. That's his fate.
You said gas truck. This means
Yes.
they were gassed on the way while driving.
A special truck that came from Germany, David al-Bahari wrote a story about that, true story, and they drove them, about 100 people could be pressed
Right.
into that truck, and they went hoping it's not a long trip, we'll be
Right.
then put in trains, and
Right.
and then when they came out of Belgrade, they had to go through Belgrade, then the truck stopped, and they connected the
Exhaust.
with the interior of the truck,
Right.
so they were all
Mhm.
dead until Jajci. He told to that friend who sent us to Homolje, he gave us a jail. When he came to him, German soldiers were old soldiers, not for the frontiers. They were, we called it Treće pozivci, the third group, young and older than the oldest, who are not for the battle.
Right.
And they escorted him. Then that friend of my father's gave him some money. On the other side of the street is a restaurant, Mornar. It still exists. And to drink their beer, and then they came take my father away back to the concentration camp. And that friend, my father's friend, Dusan, he had good friends in Belgrade police, and said, next time when you come, I'll give lots of money to them to drink their beer, and you will be arrested by Belgrade police and taken to Homolje, to any place you wish. He appeared even when we were in Sopot, suggesting that, but we felt then safe. And my father refused his help. He said, thank you, I am safe here and I feel good. Then my father explained him that he is not, don't want to escape, because Germans gave the order, for every escaped man, 70 people will be killed. And he will not escape and kill others. They were so and so killed. That's what I know about him.
So
What?
the inmates would have been killed? Other inmates
Other inmates,
at the
yes.
camp would have been
Yeah,
killed?
yeah,
if
70 of them.
anyone.
Why
So-
70? That's his story.
So he was let out on the escort, and
Yeah.
if he escaped, they would come back to the camp and kill.
Yes.
Right.
So if something happens to you anyway, if you are in danger, escape, don't look.